So in today's episode, we will discuss about the social media bill that everybody is talking about. Some of them have been rejected based on different contents of the bill. I remember there was one that had a punishment of death by hanging. That is also something that sounds like a red flag. You wonder, is this really a social media bill meant to curb fake news and hate speech? Is it there's already something wrong somewhere? So what if I believe that information I published is correct? Moving on from part 3 that deals with regulations dealing with transmission in Nigeria as relating to false declarations of fact. So we talked about correction regulations. Now let's move to section 8 of that same part 3. Section 8 of that same part 3 provides for stop transmission regulation. So stop transmission regulation. A stop transmission regulation may be issued to any person who has transmitted a declaration in Nigeria and that declaration, so to speak, is said to be false. So the court will give an order which will be enforced by the law enforcement department, that is the police, to issue a stop transmission regulation. So a stop transmission regulation may also require the person to do one of both. Either the person transmits a correction notice in Nigeria in a specified form or manner, or the person will publish a correction notice in a specified manner or in a specified newspaper to correct whatever false statement of facts that he has put out. So now moving on, section 11 under the same part 3 says non-compliance with part 3 regulation is an offense. In the instance that you do not comply with the regulation dealing with the declaration of false statement of fact, then it will be an offense. So it says that a person to whom a part 3 regulation is issued and served and who without reasonable excuse fails to comply with the regulation, whether in or outside Nigeria, shall be guilty of an offense and shall be liable on conviction. And in the case where it's an individual, to a fine not exceeding 200,000 or to imprisonment for a term not exceeding 12 months. And if it is not an individual, you pay a fine not exceeding 5 million naira. So we are saying now that, firstly, if someone should transmit any false statement of fact, there's a problem, there's a fine and there's imprisonment for that. But then if you now issue out a regulation and the person fails to comply with that regulation, you will issue out another fine or send the person to a term of imprisonment separately from him not even following the initial laws or the initial provisions that you have stipulated. The section 11, after non-compliance of this regulation, if you don't comply with the part 3 regulation, it's an offense and there's provision for either you pay a fine or a term of imprisonment. So now, the section 12 of this part 3 of this regulation, where they are trying to regulate the transmission of false state declarations, provide for access blocking order. So what is this access blocking order? The provision says that the court of law being satisfied that one or more end users in Nigeria have used or are using the services of an internet access service provider to access that online location as reported by the law enforcement department. So it will mean that if the court of law is satisfied that some users of the internet or some users of internet access service providers in Nigeria have access to an online location that has been reported by the law enforcement department, then they will issue an access blocking order. This clause applies to any person who fails to comply with part 3 of the regulation. This access blocking order clause also applies to declaration being transmitted in Nigeria by the person on an online location. And this clause also applies to when the court of law has been satisfied that one or more end users in Nigeria have used or are using the services of an internet access service provider to access that online location that they've said has a false declaration or false statement of fact, that they say that you are still accessing that online location as reported by the law enforcement department, then an access blocking order will be issued. So this same provision also says that the court of law may order the law enforcement department, that is the police, to enforce. How will they enforce? They will direct the NCC, that's the body in charge of communication. They will direct the NCC to order that internet access service provider to take reasonable steps to disable the access by end users in Nigeria on the online location, here referred to as an access blocking order. So let me explain what this provision means. This provision means that the court of law would give an order to the law enforcement department, that is the police, and they would, in their own discretion, now direct the NCC, the body in charge of communications. They will direct the NCC to order that internet access service provider to disable whatever access that they have to that false statement or false declaration that has been made. In other words, after the court has granted an order or given an order to the police to direct the NCC to disable that internet access service provider from, creating access to that online location. After they've done that, the internet access service provider is supposed to ensure that the access is disabled, and after that, NCC shall issue that internet service provider an access blocking order. So who gets the access blocking order? The internet access service provider gets the blocking order by the NCC, which was given to them by the law enforcement department, which was granted by the order of the court. So this one also sounds suspicious. The sub 4 says that an internet access service provider that does not comply with any access blocking order shall be guilty of an offense and be liable to, on conviction, to a fine of 10 million naira for each day during any part of which that order is fully complied with. So you are saying now that if an internet access service provider does not comply with that order that was given, then he'll be made to pay a fine of 10 million naira. So the internet access service provider is not the one that has anything to do with the transmission of the information or transmission of declaration. So an internet access service provider that does not comply with any access blocking order, you will now be guilty of an offense. Can you imagine? You that you are just an internet service access provider, because you don't comply with that order that they gave you, they will now say that you'll be made to pay a fine of 10 million naira because you can't go to imprisonment. So you'll be liable on conviction. If they see that you are guilty of that offense, you'll be liable on conviction and you pay a fine not exceeding 10 million naira for each day. That's stealing during any part of which that order is not fully complied with. So there are appeals to the High Court in this social media bill. There are other regulations and other ways which online location and some other things which we can always discuss subsequently. In my own opinion, it seems like there's going to be some spiteful things that will go on in it, because some places says, if you transmit any false statement that would result to a person losing an election or the outcome of an election, it already sounds very political. It doesn't sound like as if they really want to protect the internet space of Nigerians. If you want to protect the internet space of Nigerians, protect it from ensuring that there are no cyber crimes, ensuring minimal, cases of cyber fraud or cyber crimes and things like that. You are not using the internet to provide jobs for people. You are not using the internet to provide welfare for people, to provide security for people. People are doing all the things they can do, transmitting whatever information that they believe to be true. And then now you want to find a way to regulate it and curb it. If at all you even want to regulate and curb, put realistic laws. Include things that people can really apply and do it. Now, with this bill, that means you're attacking journalists, you're attacking bloggers, you're attacking bloggers, you're attacking most people that report any kind of news. If some of these laws actually provide that, if you don't know, or if you reasonably believe something to be false, these are the ways which you can verify. These are the ways which you can know. It will help. But you just put it out there that you don't know, or that you reasonably believe or is false or not. It's none of your business. How does that work? That doesn't work. So, we hope that this social media bill, which is the Protection of Internet Falsehood and Manipulation Bill, is not passed into law. We hope that it's not passed into law, because it's very ambiguous and vague, and there's some things that are not clear about it. Some things seem very hidden and shady about it. You're also giving powers to the police to issue orders. We're still trying to understand what the police is doing. We're still trying to curb them and make them, reform the police and ensure that there's no police brutality. You don't want to give them the powers again to issue order. They will manipulate it. The manipulation bill you are trying to create will be the one to manipulate people. So I hope that they really stop this bill from being passed. And, as Nigerians, just ensure that whatever you see out there is factual. Ensure that you don't spread fake news. So before you put anything out, verify. Be sure that it's the truth before you put it out. Thank you very much for watching today's episode of What Does the Law Say? Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, drop your comments, drop your questions. I want to talk to you. I want to hear what you think about this social media bill. Let's talk about it. Let's discuss. I'll see you next week. Bye.